So, project planning. Now that we got a rough idea what we want to do, what our projects, our initiatives are, we want to start planning. We want to start thinking about what we need to do, who needs to do what, and so on. So I've been putting together a little overview and around what, and apologies, I wanted this to be animated, but somehow I didn't get it to work. So I'll run through this, and you have an overview of this in your second worksheet for the day, which is also now in your Google Drive folders, and also up on Slack to download as a Word document. So when we start planning a project, it all starts with an idea of what we want to do, and this idea we can develop into what we call the scope of the project. So the scope of the project should really cover the why and the how. So it links back quite nicely to the first half of this session, where we thought about what we want to do in our projects, what are the actions, how are we actually going to achieve something, and the why, what do we want to achieve, what is our ultimate goal. So why are we doing this initiative? Why are we putting on a repair cafe? Why is it important that we put on a vegan feast and to launch a vegan cookbook? So this why is what we just looked at with the outcomes and the impact that we want to make in our communities, and the how is an outline of how we want to achieve these goals, our actions, and putting that all together, you get the scope. I always like to say that the scope doesn't only give you an idea of what you want to do, but also it should also give you an idea of what you don't want to do, because it can be quite easy, especially with projects that are doing good, community projects that want to make the world and the places where we live a better place. You can overreach and try to cram as much as you can into something. So you should use the scoping exercise also to define what you don't want to use. So a repair cafe doesn't necessarily also need to provide the option to recycle electronic appliances, for example, or a vegan feast does not need to also be a cooking show or something like that. You should use the scoping exercise to also set boundaries. So when you create the scope, you want to think back to your theory of change, and it can be just as easy as we did it earlier, or as you can do, or as the template allowed you on the worksheet, just be a list of potential outputs and potential outcomes. It doesn't have to be a very long essay. The scope is not only a really good one to define the project for you and your team, it is also something that you can then always go back to and just pull up and use to send to potential funders, to potential allies, and it is the core idea of your project that you will pull out and share with other people that you want to be involved in it. And from the scope, you can then develop all these other things that you will have heard of when we think of project planning. Things like program and budgets and the likes. So the first thing that I personally like to do is thinking about the deliverables. And I guess that is very similar with most other project managers. And it's just because deliverables should be quite easy to define. And from setting out your deliverables for the project, everything else can follow on. So what is it, your project? The question is, what is your project actually going to deliver? So for example, if we think back to the Repair Cafe, what you want to deliver is you want to deliver an event where people can get their items repaired. And then you start breaking this down. So what do you need? What do you need to do to make this happen? You need to have a venue where people can come. You need to have repairers who are actually going to do the repairing. You need to get people to come, so you need to do some publicity and so on and so on. And you can break this down, from what is it you want to do, you can go into more detail on what are the different deliverables, what are the different work packages that you need to do to make your project happen. And in project management speak, that is what we call the work breakdown structure. So you might, you see an example of that in your worksheets. It's our project broken down into the different parts of the project that you need to get done. And from that, you can work, the next step can be working out your program. So now you know that for Repair Cafe, you need to book a venue and you need to find volunteers and you need to run a publicity campaign to advertise for people to come. And then you can work out which package of work needs to happen when, how much time do you need for each task? Does it need to do certain parts of the work of the project need to happen before other parts of the work of the project, and shuffling it all into place. That is what then creates a program. And depending on how complex your project is, you might want to create something like a Gantt chart where you actually show in a graphic when what happens. If you work with a bigger team, it's also a good idea to create a Gantt chart. And then you can set yourself targets when you want to get what done. So the question for the program is when do these different things need to happen? So for example, we had Sue's example earlier with the community garden. So she will work to a deadline. She wants to get started with her project in the spring. So she will then work her program around that spring deadline and figure out what needs to happen before, what can happen after, and create the program from there. Similar exercise is the team building. Who do you need to get involved? Who can take on which job in your project? So you can, I like to do this in parallel to doing the other things, during the scoping and the deliverables and the program. I like to already keep in mind who do I need to deliver all of these different things. You might already have a team, so you might already be able to think, oh, this might be a good job for him or her, or you might already find some gaps. Oh, we don't really know anyone who can do our publicity. And then the first job, for example, then you might want to put something in your program saying, find a publicity coordinator or something. So the team should be really defined in parallel. And not only the team, but also who are the other people that you need to talk to? When do you need to engage, for example, with funders, or do you need to get permissions from anyone? So that is the who, the question that we need to answer. And the last but not least one is how much. So again, this can be something that can run in parallel. Every time you find, oh, actually, we will have to spend money on this. So when you break down your project in the what and when questions, you might stumble across items that will actually cost money. And you want to put those items into a budget and estimate how much that will cost you. Again, it might be a case of putting something in the program, putting a work item in your program to define, at some point someone really needs to sit down and think about how much this will cost. If it's a more complex project, you might need to work with a spreadsheet to keep on track, keep on top of your different outgoing and incoming funds. If it's only a smaller project, then you don't necessarily need a separate budget. It might just be someone, the parish council or someone who's a friendly organization to your cause can give you some money, and you might be able to get some money back through your event or whatever it is you're doing. So those are the 6 key questions that you will have to ask when you start planning a project. Why am I doing this in the first place? How do I want to do this? What are the different things that I want to get done or need to get done in this project? When do I need to get them done? Who could help me get them done? And how much will this cost?